Hi, Wanderers.
I'm Amanda.
And I'm Ron.
Welcome to Wanderlost.
This is Military Chatter.
So once a week, we do a series where we talk about our life in the military. And if you've missed any of the previous ones, there's a link to the playlist right above us. And this week, we're talking about
homeschooling.
So I know that a lot of people are homeschooling right now, like the whole country is, but
kind of against your will in some cases.
Right, forced homeschooling for a lot of people. But I know a lot of people in the traveling community homeschool because they choose to, and we homeschool because we choose to. I would call us more nomadic than like constantly traveling.
Yeah,
because we
transient.
We move seasonally, not really, not that often, but right, transient is probably better. And that is one of the reasons why we chose to homeschool. And we just wanted to talk about what the choices are that we made and why we made them, and what choices other people have to make and how the rules go. So if you are homeschooling right now, forced homeschooling, first of all,
completely against your will, you're being held at gunpoint. We understand.
There's a couple of things that I think you need to keep in mind. And number one is no child has ever become a complete failure from not doing organized learning for a 5 or 6 month period. So first of all, nothing's going to happen if you do nothing. I realize that a lot of people are getting pass-fail grades. So true, there will be some pass-fail issues, but stop putting so much pressure on yourself to do everything the same way their teacher would do it and to make everybody enjoy it all the time, every day, because that doesn't happen anyway in any school, anywhere.
I think the bottom line is just do the best you can.
And that is going to be great. And don't think they're going to be scarred, because they're not. I mean, you're messing them up in a lot of other ways, but this is not one.
But that's just what we do as parents. We screw our kids up and then hope that it works out in the end.
So why did we choose to homeschool? I know I said already that it was because we wanted the flexibility that comes with moving all the time. Something else?
Well, a big part of that was when it came time, then the boys, or Price was school age, we were overseas. And so that had a big impact on what we chose to do, because we wanted that flexibility to travel. You guys have seen we have a video on space age travel. And space age travel requires a lot of flexibility, and that's the way you travel when you're overseas. And so that played a lot into why we made that decision, because it allowed us to travel off season if we wanted to come home space A, rather than trying to go when everybody was trying to go during Thanksgiving.
Right, that was a big thing. I think from the very beginning, though, I knew that I wanted to homeschool. My issue was I didn't want to homeschool in a tiny place like where I grew up, because the schools wouldn't let homeschool people join the band or join any sports or anything like that. And so I thought they would be very isolated if we just homeschooled and stayed in this small little place.
Well, I think that was always a big issue. I was the reluctant one with homeschooling, just because, one, I knew I wouldn't really be, for the most part, involved in that. And Amanda, I think you have an easier closeness with the children because you do the homeschool with them. I go to work, and more normal, and that was not at all within my wheelhouse of what I knew. I knew organized school. You go, you do your thing, a lot of structure, that sort of thing. And so I struggled for a long time with what that looked like. I think we found a good rhythm, and I think one of the things that I had to learn was that homeschool instruction doesn't look like a full 8-hour day of instruction that happens at a school, because the teacher's dealing with 30 plus kids ish, trying to get them through instruction. When you're one-on-one, one-on-two with your children, then it doesn't take that long. It takes, maybe 4 hours or something like that to get a full day of instruction in, which was very foreign to me. And it took me a long time to even come to terms with that.
I think the easiest part for me was that we got a very structured curriculum to begin with. And I felt like what they were assigning us to work during the day was a full day's work. If I was doing everything on there, it made me feel like I was doing a full days worth of stuff. And so at the beginning, yeah, I was shocked by how fast we were done, and I was like, well, we're finished for the day. But then in preschool, I mean, you're not doing that much stuff.
Yeah.
You're learning how letters sound and that kind of stuff. And I was very worried that I would not be able to teach them to read. Like, there was a moment where I thought, I will send them to kindergarten, let somebody else teach them to read, and use scissors. That's the worst part of...
Scissors are her kryptonite.
That would make me more angry than anything else we've ever done. Like, why can't you learn to use scissors? Like, I don't. So here's how I taught my kids to use scissors. I gave them some scissors and...
Safety scissors.
True. And a lot of sheets of paper, just blank paper, no lines on it, no like, hey, try to cut this line. And I left the room. And I was like, have fun with this.
I think scissors, or I heard on a podcast today, talked about that there's some things in life, like riding a bike, you can't explain to somebody how to ride a bike.
To do it.
You sort of, if you know how to ride a bike, you get on and you do it, and you sort of tell them, all right, just kind of go. I think there's several things in life where you can't, teaching it is not what you do. You sort of just help somebody stumble into the experience, and they get it one day, and you see those kids riding bikes.
That is the same thing as reading, how reading works. So those of you who have preschoolers or kindergartners or first graders, and they know what all the letters sound like, but for some reason they can't put them together and it click into a word, that's an actual part in your brain that when it reaches the development for it, they can do it. Until then, they can't do it. So it doesn't matter how many times you have them sound out C-A-T, they cannot put that together to say cat until their brain is where it is supposed
cat?
To be.
I thought that said dog.
So there are, it's just physiological. It's not like, oh, my child is behind. No, their brain is not there yet. So it's fine.
So we've homeschooled overseas in the military, and now in 3 different states.
Right.
So what are some things that you think are important to share as far as that goes?
Right. So I don't know how it works. I'm assuming that people who are full-time travelers would have to follow the state where they are residents.
Their home of residence, yeah.
Right.
Home of record.
We don't do that in the military. Our home of record is in Arkansas, but we have to follow the rules of whatever state we live in for homeschooling. So I know Texas is a big place that full-timers get their residence in, and South Dakota. Those are the 2 main places. And in Texas, there are no rules for homeschooling. You just say, I'm homeschooling, and they're like, okay, fine, go ahead.
Which is actually the same thing if you're overseas in the military. It's the same thing. You sign a piece of paper, say that I homeschool, and that's it.
The military did, the last time we were there, want to know what subjects I was teaching and what curriculum I was using, but there's no follow-up and no checkup or anything like that.
It's not an excuse not to do anything, though.
In some states, they're very strict on what you have to do. And I think Maryland has been the most strict on us. We lived in Colorado Springs, but we didn't have to declare that we were homeschooling in Colorado because you don't have to declare until you're 6, and Price was 4 when we left. So we didn't have to declare in Colorado, but Maryland, we had to have quarterly meetings with a school liaison person, and they needed to see a week's worth of work, like an example week or something, a sample, and we would have to bring in a binder that had all the different subjects that we were teaching, and then a sample of the kids' work in each of those subjects, and they would fill out a piece of paper and then send it to us. But we had to do that. No, I said quarterly, but it's just twice. We had to do it during the fall semester and then during the spring semester. So twice per school year.
Yeah, I remember those because we had to go to like a library.
It was. There was different meeting places depending on where you lived in the county. But then here in South Dakota, and if you're full-time traveling and you want South Dakota to be your home state, they're pretty lenient as well. You just have to fill out a paper at the beginning of the year declaring that you want to homeschool, the beginning of the school year, declaring that you want to homeschool every year, no matter what. And then your children in 4th grade, 8th grade, and 11th grade have to take a standardized test. So there are a couple of ways that you can do that. The school has a test. You can literally go to the school, pick up the test, bring it home, proctor the test to your child, and then take it back to the school. Or there are approved tests that you could get online. You order the test yourself, you give it to your child at home, and then you send off the test, and they will send the results to the school. So people have chosen to do it different ways. We've only had to do it once. Price was in the 8th grade the year we moved here. So we went and picked the test up from the school. We brought it here. He took the test here, and then we took it back to the school. There's no time limit on the test, so we just broke it up, and he took one section of the test, like one subject, every day. And then when he finished it, we just turned it back in. But it's not timed like it used to be. It's not even timed at the school. But I remember when I took tests in school, they were for sure timed.
Oh, yeah.
But they're not timed anymore, at least not the ones here in South Dakota. So
I think the other thing to talk about is that, we made the decision to do it, and you talked about that if we were in a small town like we both grew up in, that we wouldn't have done it because of sort of the isolation. I think that part of what's made it easier for us as a military family is because, one, a lot of people in the military homeschool,
right.
and two, the way the military supports with things like the force support squadron with all the family activities, those sorts of things, it helps. You don't have to worry so much about, a lot of people talk about socialization, with homeschooling. Well, it's just you and your kids and that sort of thing. But the military's been, it's family friendly atmosphere, and the things that it does, you're going to have that socialization.
True.
Through other things.
But we've also never lived anywhere that didn't have a big homeschool.
True.
Presence anyway, and so it's easy to find Facebook groups of other homeschoolers. And one of the running jokes that we have is that we will go on a field trip, and all these homeschool families will show up. We would either go to the zoo or we'll go to a museum or whatever. And we get there and we're all kind of just standing around, and one of the zoo or museum people will come up and be like, "Is your group ready?" And we're like, "Yeah." And then like, "Okay, children, if we can have everybody over here." And the children all walk over and then like stand in a group around them. And the people are like, line up. And so then the running joke between us, the moms will be like, "They don't know how to line up. They're homeschooled. Sorry." Because they don't ever have to form lines. Like, there's not a lot of line forming.
There's not a lunch line.
For sure. They just don't have to line up. So they just all want to be the closest to the person speaking. And so they just wad around the person. And then they're like, "Line up, please." I'm like, they don't know how. They're homeschooled.
With their homeschool, we really have no idea how they're doing.
So anyway, we have had a lot of fun. And also, another thing, the boys are in 7th and 10th grade, and they get to pick if they want to be homeschooled or not. We decided that actually we started asking them probably 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Because Price chose to go one
so no, it would have been
quarter.
4 or 5 years ago, because it was when we were in Spain.
He did 1 quarter of 7th grade. And then he was like, "No, I would think I would rather stay home." Okay. So
I'm out.
Right.
So,
but he wanted to see what school was like.
Yeah.
He said his only reference to school was Saved by the Bell reruns.
Not an entirely good.
So he wanted to go to school.
Well, and I think that for him, part of it was, can I do what my peers are doing? And he found out that, hey, he could hold his own, and I think he was, okay, got it, cool. Can I go back home now and get up when I want to get up? And I think that's one of the advantages, and actually it's part of the thing that's has always been a big struggle for me, because I have a personality that, hey, you set a schedule, you stay to it, that sort of thing. And
well, no, your personality is, if we have things to do, they need to get done first thing, and then let's go play and relax and have fun. And nobody else in the house has this mentality.
I'm so alone. Pray for me, people. Please pray for me.
So you need to be praying for the rest of us. Anyway, so we, it just has worked out well for us, but we're still going to give them the choice again. I mean, if we move and get to Texas and they decide they want to go to school, which nobody is saying that at all right now. But
the schools are good on base down there.
Right. But I mean, we'll let them decide and see what they want to do. And our world will have to change if that's what happens, but that's okay. Part of this is they're now old enough to be able to choose the kind of schooling that they do. And they're going to be choosing their own schooling in just a couple of years, no matter what. So we
just wanted to have a conversation about that, what that's been like for us. And in our experience, it's kind of a one-off subject. We don't have a series on this one, but we
Right.
thought
We're not talking about homeschooling anymore. Unless you guys
no.
have questions, we'll
Yeah.
pop that.
Anytime you
up.
got questions, please share those. But that we just want to kind of share that and say that's what it's been. So next week we'll start with our chaplain series. So I'm going to do a little work this week, kind of figuring out what the kind of what the layout for that's going to look like. But really excited to talk to you guys about that, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
See you later. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. We got a lot of comments on our last video about our beautiful cross wall, and today you're going to notice that they're mostly gone, and that's because as we prep to move this summer and prep to sell the house, we kind of had to take a few of them down. So we're down to just the things you see here, and the story behind the cross wall is when you're a pastor or a chaplain, people give you either Bibles or crosses. And so we started getting a lot of crosses early in our ministry, and so we sort of leaned into that. And so each cross comes either from somebody or we pick them up in our travels, and so they each have a special meaning to us. So it feels really barren here with them now, but we got to do what we got to do to get ready to move.